Welcome to this Tutor to You Sociology topic video looking at feminist theories of crime and deviance, focusing on the work of Frieda Adler and the liberation thesis. Up until the late 1960s, criminology was perceived to be a male-stream area of study, that is, male sociologists studying male criminality. There was limited discussion of female criminality, and where there was, such as the work of Cesare Lombroso, it was centred on biological rather than social differences between males and females. However, with rising female criminality in the late 1950s and the wide array of social changes throughout the 1960s and 1970s, there was a growth in female criminology alongside the rise of second-wave feminism. Feminist approaches have contributed greatly to our understanding of crime and deviance in the years since, but one of the first theories to explore rising female criminality was Frieda Adler's liberation thesis in 1975. Prior to the rise of second-wave feminism, informal and formal social controls on women limited their criminality. One of the ways this was achieved was through social expectations of women to remain within the domestic sphere, that is, to act as a wife and mother, performing unpaid domestic labour for the family and providing emotional support. Now, this limited both their legitimate opportunities, that is, gaining employment and having a career, and their illegitimate opportunities, that is, the ability to commit criminal and deviant behaviours. Now, this changed with the social changes that occurred in the post-World War II era. The employment of females increased as social attitudes to women's employment changed. As women became more vocal in expressing their dissatisfaction with being cast into a stereotypical role of housewife, more opportunities presented themselves for women to be out of the domestic sphere and in the public sphere. Both employment and changing social attitudes gave women more independence, what Adler referred to as liberation, and this provided them with more opportunities to become involved in illegitimate activities, that is, crime. According to Adler, the empowerment of women provided them with the self-confidence to challenge existing stereotypes of masculine and feminine behaviours, and this included committing criminal and deviant activities. Social changes, particularly to relationships and marriages, also meant that women were more likely to feel strain, particularly in those families where women were expected to become providers for themselves and their families. A further impact of women's liberation came with the changes to female socialisation, from being socialised into being passive and subservient, to being more assertive and focused upon financial independence and careers. In the long term, this transformed the expectations of women from being financially dependent upon a partner to needing to be financially independent, and this resulted in a rise in criminality amongst women. What provides Adler's liberation theories with some credibility is the correlation between the rise of feminism and the rise in female criminality. Traditionally, women's criminality was restricted to areas such as prostitution and shoplifting, but increasingly women are becoming involved in more serious crimes such as violent assaults, fraud, and even white-collar and corporate crimes. This has seen an increase in the percentage of crimes being committed by women from 1 in 7 crimes in the 1950s to 1 in 4 crimes in contemporary society. And this rise in female criminality has accelerated with the decline in traditional stereotypes of femininity. We can apply the concept of liberation thesis in a more contemporary view, looking at some of the impacts of third-wave feminism in the 1990s and its impacts on female criminality. The socialisation of girls into being more assertive and even aggressive has led to moral panics about girl gangs in the early part of this century, and the involvement of girls within gang culture. In the mid-1990s, the media created the ladette stereotype, typical of young women who had been socialised on the back of second-wave feminism into behaving like young males, and this caused a moral panic about the unladylike behaviour of young women, particularly focusing on drinking and sexual relationships, which now mirrored the conduct of males of a similar age. Liberation thesis can also be applied to the coverage of female criminality in the media. With changing attitudes about female criminality, women were no longer seen as making errors of judgment. Their behaviour is now vilified in the media, both for the act itself and for the fact that they were a female committing that act. Sociologists have suggested that these type of representations are an attempt to control female behaviour, as they judge male and female criminals by different criteria. In evaluating Adler's liberation thesis, it can be suggested that Adler is overstating the impact of second-wave feminism, particularly given the rise in female criminality began prior to the impacts of second-wave feminism being felt. More contemporary research also suggests that the roles of females within gangs is more traditional than people assume, with girls taking on submissive roles within gang culture. Furthermore, it can be argued that the impacts of second-wave feminism were felt more within the middle classes, with traditional gender roles still being present in working-class areas, and working-class girls being expected to conform to traditional gendered roles by their peers. However, others would argue that within working-class communities, aspects of third-wave feminism has changed the way in which girls are socialised, and that this has impacted on female criminality. That concludes this Tutor to You Sociology topic video on feminist theories of crime and deviance, looking at the work of Frieda Adler and the liberation thesis. Thanks for watching.